We break down the Bears schedule release and also break down the details of the schedule next on the Unbearable Sports Podcast.
We're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice long
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're out there on YouTube. And also rate the show 5 stars ever that you get your podcast. What is going on, Bears fans? The Bears just released their video and talked about the schedule. And let me know, what do you think down below in the comments? Did you like it? Did you not like it? I didn't want to go live because it seems like everybody's live right now. So I'll just record this and post this out. But let me know down in the comments what you thought. Because personally, I didn't mind it. I didn't think it was like one of the greatest or anything like that. But my wife's watching New Girl right now, actually, without even knowing that this was going to be part of the schedule release. So I thought it was solid. I thought it was okay. Thought it was cute. And I just think like that's every time that the Bears do something, it's just always like, all right, I like it. Not like over the hill or like, over the moon with this or anything like that. I just kind of liked it. Not too much, anything too crazy. I don't know if there were actual Ben Johnsons that were in that or not, but yeah, I thought it was solid, right? I thought it was a solid schedule review. It wasn't like the Packers. The Packers was weird. The Eagles was just like, it wasn't like they even tried. The Miami Dolphins, like they didn't try. It was just literally nothing. So with this, I always feel like we have just a good, safe schedule release. So to me, I like it. But let's keep on going and let's actually break down the schedule, because one of my favorite things to do is dive deep into the schedule and figure out more about it. Now, I don't have all the numbers that I did like we did last season, so I was debating on if I actually wanted to do the show today or tomorrow, but I know that we're all hungry for some schedule details. So let's get started. Also, too, the news just broke that the Bears are going to be playing the Dolphins, Bills, and Chiefs as their preseason opponents as well. Let's talk about this schedule because it's hard. It's really, really hard. Bears have the 26th most difficult schedule out there. The Vikings are at least 28th, so there's at least that. But all the numbers that I'm really grabbing today are from Sharp Analytics. Let me actually move my face out of the way from their logo. Sharp Analytics has some of the best stuff out there when it comes down to schedule releases and other pieces like that. And the way that they chart this is really on projected win totals, which is the best metric you can kind of use on this. Sometimes people use Vegas win totals and other things like that. So, and actually, yeah, this is what this is. It's forecasted Vegas win totals that we're then using to say who has the people with the highest Vegas forecasted win totals. So also the easiest schedules, just in case if you're curious, 49ers, the Patriots, and the Saints. And the most difficult, we have the bottom 3 are the Lions, the Browns, and the New York Giants. So this is where I think, like, when you look at that, especially, you go, okay, now the Lions are probably going to be having that big regression that, like, a lot of people are talking about. They lose all their coaching staff. Hutchinson might not be fully healthy back. We'll have to still see that. But yeah, they have a very, very difficult schedule. So let's keep on talking a little bit more about this whole travel effect. Now, for those that don't know, the travel effect happens with who has to travel the most. Because if you have to travel a lot of times people just, they're not as rested. They have to be jumping from time zone to time zone, other things like that. And when you look at who has to have the most miles traveled, the Bears actually do not have a lot of travel that's out there. So for those that are watching the show, you can see the Bears are in this little bottom right-hand quadrant where they don't have to travel a lot, but also very hard strength of schedule. And for the Lions, they don't travel a lot, but yet again, very difficult strength of schedule. And so that's one of the difficult things that are out there. And someone who has one of the most difficult is like the Rams, the Chiefs. They're going to be traveling a lot and difficult strength of schedule. Now, the other piece that we don't factor in today is there is one, and I think Sharp Analytics drops this, but I'll probably retweet this or talk about this at a later show. But one thing that I just want to look at is the rest. I think they call it the rest coefficient, where basically the idea is that in between games, who has the most rest. And now last year, Bears had one of the easiest schedules, and it obviously flipped because people didn't expect the NFC North to be that good. And also, they didn't expect the Washington Commanders to be that good as well. So we'll also talk a little bit about that when we start getting down to the predictions and the other pieces like that. So let's look at this schedule. And when you look at this, for people that are actually looking at it, this is all the forecasted wins for the projected teams. Now, when you look at this, if I should have pulled up the one that we had last year, there was a lot of green, a lot of teams that were projected not so great wins. But now when you look at this schedule, the ones that are in green, we have the Cowboys, the Raiders, the Saints, the Giants, the Steelers, and the Browns. But then you go with everyone else. Obviously, everyone in red is basically NFC North, but also the Commanders, the Ravens, the Bengals, the Eagles, and the 49ers. So that's actually, when we talk about why this is so difficult, this is actually a lot of divisional games that we do have out there. I think the rest, it's kind of split 50-50, because if you're talking about 5 easy teams, you have 5 green teams that are outside of your division, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 difficult. So it's kind of, at least it's kind of split in half with a little bit of that. So let's actually talk a little bit about some of these opponent previews, because what I always like to do when we make these predictions is I like to kind of split it up into different chunks. And the first thing that sticks out is the first 4 weeks. So for the first 4 weeks, we are projected to have the 14th, at least the 14th easiest schedule. So this is actually slightly easier than average for the first 4 weeks. And it's not going to be as easy as the first 4 weeks were last season, because the first 4 teams we have are the Vikings, and then we have the Lions, and then we have the Vikings on Monday Night Football. Then we have the Lions, then we have the Cowboys, and then we have the Raiders. And we're going home, away, home, and away. So let's kind of start doing a little bit of predictions with this, because I think when you see this, so first off, the Vikings, it's one of those, like, the Vikings were not supposed to be good for like another season, and then they're still doing well. And now they don't have Sam Darnold. But yet again, they're all about coaching. And I still think that they're going to be difficult. I don't think that they're going to be getting 9 wins, kind of like what the Vegas projections are, where they have them at 8.7. But yet again, this is where you get into a lot of your divisional games, which to me, if you can split and go 3-3 in the division, that's what I'm at least hoping, right? Obviously, we want to be better than that. We want to do better. But this is a very difficult division. And I hope that we can at least split some of these games. I do think that there's going to be some regression from the Lions because not having Ben Johnson. So I think I lower them a little bit more just because of the lack of coaching. We saw without Ben Johnson, their offense wasn't great. And then with the Vikings, they'll be finicky. They'll be scrappy of a team. And that's where with this, I think if you can go 2 I would like to get 3, but I feel like 2-2 might be like more realistic out of this first 4 weeks. 3-1, awesome, right? That's what you want to go with, because we have a week 5 bye, which is just not a great spot to be having that week 5 bye. So what we have here, I can see them kind of going 2-2. Like I said, 3-1 would be better. The Cowboys, the Cowboys are a little dysfunctional. The Raiders, I think with Pete Carroll, they're going to be at least competitive, right? They're definitely going to be trying to compete with Pete Carroll. So I think it's good. It's a challenge. If you can start off hot, I'm going to say 2-2 for this. So now we have a bye week. And this is something when we start talking about the rest, something that I don't love that the Bears have is you start out on Monday Night Football. So the Lions are going to have an extra day's rest at least when you're going against the Bears the following week, right? Bears are going to have one less day because they start on Monday Night Football. Then you have the bye week, and then you go back to Monday Night Football. So yet again, you kind of have a similar type of piece where you're going off of a big chunk of rest for another Monday Night Football game. So I don't love that we have that, but the next handful of games, we'll just chunk it up to the next. We'll go the next 4 as well. And with the next 4, you have the Commanders, then you have the Saints. Actually, let me see one more time because I have actually another thing. 12-18. We'll be able to talk a little bit more about that. But let's just grab the next 4 and just kind of talk about that little chunk. Because we have the Commanders, Monday Night Football away at Washington. Then we also have home against the Saints. Then we have away at Baltimore and away at the Bengals. So my take with this, right? We're going against 3 red teams. When I'm looking at some of these teams, the Saints have everything to be the worst team out there. You should beat that team. Like, they have all these things out there. They should be one of the worst teams. I also think that the Commanders are going to be taking a step back. Yes, Jaden Daniels, he's going into his second season, and I think a lot of people are going to be talking about him being better. But I just feel like, especially with this, a lot of times you kind of have a little bit of regression kind of hit you right there. So that's where I kind of feel like maybe they're not going to be as good as they once were. And then also you go with the Ravens. Ravens are going to be awesome. Ravens are going to be difficult, right? I think that with that, you're kind of saying, okay, guaranteed win, quote unquote, guaranteed win with the Saints, quote unquote, guaranteed loss with Ravens. Right. So you'd say that's at least 1-1. But then when I look at the Bengals and the Commanders, Bengals seem very disjointed right now. It seems like the offense is going to be there, but what's going to happen with Trey Hendrickson? And it just, the Bengals, I feel like both of those games are very winnable games. Like, I know we talk about, like what we were just saying, it's a very difficult schedule, but I see only like 2 games that are going to be like, okay, I don't think we have a chance. But these other ones are very, very winnable games. And yet again, I think another spot where you can get 2-2, you can kind of be at that 500 level within the first 9 weeks. And then depending on where the Bears kind of sit, they can add another win. They can lose if they're not kind of firing on all cylinders, which you're hoping they can, especially like, low key, having that early bye week might be good for them to just kind of do some quick adjustments on the fly. That's a positive way to think about it. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting, at least from that first beginning. And actually, I'll also include the next 2 games when we have the Giants and also the Vikings, where to me, Giants, not a good team. Yet again, like, this is where you kind of have some of these bad teams. And then, like I was saying, or this is home against the Giants. I feel like that's going to be a win. And then you're going against the Vikings. Like I said, I think they're going to be scrappy. So one of those games, you're just going to kind of win, loss against the Vikings is what I'm kind of feeling with that. But now let's get into the later portion of this. So the last, 7 games. So the last 7 games, Sharp Analytics says that the Bears have the 28th most difficult end of the season. So it's going to be very, very similar to how we were talking about with the Bears at the beginning of the season, the beginning of the season last year, except it's not going to be as easy of a cakewalk as we had it last season. Because if I'm just kind of doing the quick math out here, so if I'm saying, let's say that the Bears split against the Vikings, they win against the Saints and the Giants, so that's 3. They beat the Commanders but lose to the Bengals, and then they then they win. Let's say that they win like the Cowboys and the Raiders, and they lose to the Lions, right? So when you look at that, so we got 4, 5, 6. So like 6 wins and 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Like, you could be 6-4 or so, like going in, or 6-5. Sorry, just counting on the fly. Going into week 12, or 6-4. So going into week 12, that ain't bad at all. And then you have your last 7, which is going to be just very, very difficult. Now, if we look at this slate of games, you're going against the Steelers. The Steelers, it all depends on what they're doing with Aaron Rodgers. This is also at home. So maybe Aaron Rodgers comes back home to Chicago to try to show that he owns us. And then we show them, hey, this is a different day and age. We win at Lambeau. And also, we win at Lambeau, but also we aren't going to get owned by Aaron Rodgers anymore. So I feel like that can be a win, right? Yet again, 8.3 wins are projected for the Steelers. They're always going to be scrappy. They're very similar to the Vikings right now, where the Steelers with Mike Tomlin, no matter who's out there, they're going to have a winning record. They're going to be difficult to try to go against. And then you go against the Eagles, where the Eagles obviously were very, very good. They're projected 11.6 wins, similar to the Baltimore Ravens. So you're kind of like, all right, probably not going to win those. But that's also a Friday night game. So not going to lie, I don't mind that you're going against one of the best teams on like a short rest, and then you get a longer rest to then go against the Packers at Green Bay, because right after that, you're going to Lambeau. You're going against the Packers. So to me, I don't mind that, right? One of your away games to Philly, short rest, right? I don't expect us to win, but if we do, heck yeah. So rather have that against the Eagles than anyone else. But yeah, then you go into Lambeau and, in week 14 with a little bit of extra rest. So gotta love that. And then you come back home and go against the Browns. They're projected 4.9 wins, projected to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. And that's where I feel good, because you're kind of going against the Giants, the Browns, the Saints, all of which are projected to be some of the worst teams. And there's not a lot of hope there's not like a lot of pathways that you see those 3 teams being better than what they are actually right now. And then to finish up the rest of the season, you have the Packers at Soldier Field, Saturday night football, Saturday football game. And then also then the following week, all the way over in week 17 against the 49ers, Sunday night football. And then we end the season at home versus the Lions. So those last 3 games, right? Like I've said before, I think that you can split. If you can split with the Packers, awesome. If you can beat them twice and lose to the Vikings twice, I'm fine with that, right? Just beat the Packers. That's what I want to see. But yet again, I think like when you're looking at the Packers, I think their offensive line is a little bit banged up. And also still with the wide receiver room, there's a lot of questions with that. And also still Jordan Love is Jordan Love. I do not believe that he's a top tier quarterback. And he showed that last season. So is he going to continue to show that? Their defense should take a little bit of a step, but yet again, I think that they have a lot of personnel frustrations going on. Elton Jenkins sitting out, their offensive lineman, and then also Jair Alexander not wanting to be there. The wide receivers, Romeo Doubs, not wanting to be there. They just kind of have this little gray aura around them a little bit, which is nice. Unfortunately, we face them later on, so it's either they're going to be a complete train wreck or they're going to have their stuff together when they go against us. But the last 2 games, like I said, I don't expect the Lions to be the Lions that people expect because of the loss of the coaching staff. And then also when you see the 49ers, I think that people love the 49ers because they're the 49ers. We're like, oh man, they're always going to be good. But when you look at it, Mike Shanahan has not won as many games as I think people think. The defense should be pretty good because Robert Saleh is back. But still, the offense, you're talking about Brock Purdy entering his final season. You're talking about the offensive line that has lost a lot. I don't think that this is going to be that 10.4 win team that we think. And quite frankly, I think when you look at this schedule, for it being one of the most difficult schedules as it was projected, right? You're talking about a top 10 hardest schedule that's out there. I don't think it's as bad as I think we kind of think. We're just so used to like cupcake schedules. Like we've had cupcake schedules and still had terrible seasons. Now, yet again, last season did flip just because of how the NFC North and the Commanders played. but we've always, at this point, always kind of had easier ones. I think this could have the potential opposite as it did last season, and you might start to see some of those, juggernauts that they kind of have outlined start to do a little bit worse, kind of lean more towards that less than 500. But that's just my take on it. I do think that we can beat the 49ers. They do love to run the ball, which is always a little bit scary since we don't have a lot of jumbo guys up front. But I think when we're looking at this and we're looking at the last seven games out here, right? I think you can take the Browns. I think the Steelers is a winnable game. I think that you can definitely beat the Packers at least once. And I do think that the 49ers are a winnable game as well. So in the last 7, I think this is where you're going to see what the Bears end up becoming. Like we've kind of been talking about throughout this, there's a lot of areas that you should be around. You can be around 500. And then at this very end, this is going to determine what you are, right? And I think that's why they want to see the Bears versus the Lions at the very end, because they're going to be trying to compete, or they should be in the situation to be trying to compete out there. So when I look at this, right, I don't like to do official predictions or anything like this, but I do think that the Bears are a darn good football team, because we saw we had a dysfunctional coach, an offensive coordinator that didn't want to coach a rookie quarterback. We saw the defense give up on a head coach. Like, we saw all these different things, and we still drafted 10th. We still drafted 10th overall after all that crap that went on. And to me, feels like we got the head coach right? We have to see what ends up happening, but he's a blue chip coach, right? We talk about blue chip players all the time, and we talk about adding those. This is one of the most hyped head coach candidates since Mike Shanahan. And to me, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what this team can actually do, because when you're looking at that schedule, I think that this is definitely like a 9-win team. I really do feel that way. Like I was saying, God, it was all they should be around that. They should be around that space, but I feel like you have all these things. You have the veterans in the locker room. We also have the team that just is like tired of being told that they're really good or that they won the offseason. They're ready to just kind of put up or shut up type of deal. And yeah, when you look at it, what was I saying? So kind of if you split the division, and then if you're looking at some of the other ones, like I said, there's a lot of the teams that you're going against that aren't in your division. There's some winnable games out there, and you can go 5 and 5, and then 3-3, and then just have that one decider. So I think that 9 wins is a very acceptable win total. But hey, can we break 10? I think that's the big question. If you think we can break 10, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe out there. I'm just excited for some football. I'm excited to break down more mini camps, some OTAs. They're going to be coming our way, so we're going to hear more. And there's going to be more storylines, so we will keep you covered. Hope y'all have a great rest of your week. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and